Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's talk with Product School. We teach product management courses with campuses in California and New York. And today we have a very special guest for you. I just want to check and make sure that everybody can see and hear me, and we have everybody here. So just a quick check. Okay, so before I introduce our guest, just some quick notes. We're going to take questions following the presentation, and your questions can be submitted in the live chat box that you'll see next to the YouTube video. So you'll be able to type them in there following the presentation. Now, again, I said we have a very special guest today, and with tomorrow being International Women's Day, it's even more exciting. So let me introduce SC Moatti, the tech visionary, early stage investor, and former Facebook exec and best-selling author of Mobilize. So thank you, SC, for joining us today.
Oh, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Cassandra.
Thank you. Could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into tech and some more about your background?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I have a slide about myself. So I spent a dozen years building products at companies like Electronic Arts and Nokia, and also my own company, which got sold to Facebook as a talent acquisition. And then I spent a few years at Facebook. And then I started an organization called Products That Count, which runs some of the largest speaker series and executive events for product managers in the Bay Area. From there, I wrote a book that is called Mobilized, on the business of mobile. That's been a bestseller. And I joined the board of a mobile company called Opera Software, which is a large browser and advertising company. And all of that, all the while, I started doing early stage investment, and now that's my primary focus: early stage technology investing. So if you want to go to the next slide, I think the topic that you wanted me to talk about today is how do you reinvent yourself? Well, it really is a mindset. If you want to go on number 3, reinventing yourself is really a mindset. If you think about statistics, there's probably a dozen times that the current workforce is going to change job and therefore have to reinvent themselves. So in previous generations, you had 2-3 jobs in your career, so the skill of reinvention wasn't necessarily a critical skill. But today, if you're going to do this a dozen times, it's really important to basically learn that skill of reinvention. And I'm going to give you some of my learnings and best practices. And then also, I know that many of the people who are listening in today want to get into product management, or are here because they're curious, they're learning, they want to learn, they're ambitious, and so they want to raise their profile. So I'm going to share some ways that you can raise your profile. And then I'm going to give you a few networking tactics and tools. So, first thing, if you go to the next slide, I was just mentioning it's a tough world. It's a tough world because the stat says as an individual, you're going to have to reinvent yourself a dozen times. It's a tough world for companies too. I had the chance to hear John Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco, now chairman of Cisco, and he said that during his tenure as CEO, companies and Cisco had to reinvent themselves every 7 to 10 years, so completely reinvent the business. And now when he coaches CEOs and industry captain, he tells them you have to reinvent your company every 3 to 5 years. Well, guess what happens to the workforce when you reinvent a company every 3 to 5 years? The workforce also needs to reinvent itself. And so you really want to get ahead of that curve, so you don't find yourself in a situation where it's hard for you to find your next job or your next opportunity. So how do you go about that? If you go to the next slide, how you reinvent yourself professionally. What's sort of interesting is that I use this exact same slide with a different title, which is how do you grow a company or how do you grow a product? And if you think of all the techniques of growth hacking, and this audience is familiar with them because you guys are all product managers, when you do growth hacking, you say define success, right? Set your goal for growth and then map everything into a funnel. So everything that you do is going to basically lead to achieving your goal, right? So you have this funnel of growth. Well, to reinvent yourself, it's exactly the same thing. So you want to think of yourself as your product that you want to grow. So define success. What is your next opportunity? Who do you want to be 2 to 3 years from now? And then everything you do leads towards that. So a couple of things there. First of all, that approach of seeing yourself as a product, I've applied it to myself. I recommend that you think of yourself that way because it will make it a lot easier for you to market yourself, to think of yourself as a multifaceted person that has many skills that can be in many roles. Just like when you have a product and you're looking for an audience, you're basically packaging and marketing and growing your product to meet the needs of your audience, right? So at the same time, to define success, like what you want to be, you also want to be realistic about the goals that you set. I hear a lot of people tell me like, I'm going to become a product manager in 3 months, or I'm going to learn to code in 4 to 6 weeks. And that's not how it happens. Just think of the different steps that you have to go through. You have to first learn the skills, then you have to start meeting people who are hiring product managers, are already product managers. You have a phase of networking. Then you're going to start refining your goal. And as you refine it, you'll come down with, say, a list of half a dozen to a dozen companies or roles that you want to get into. And once you have that, you're going to go on the road and basically try to get a job or start a company in whatever area you set out for yourself. And from there, it's a matter of waiting out until the right opportunity arrives, right? So it's being opportunistic. Um, and if you add up all these different times, right? The time to learn the skills, the time to network, the time to identify your goal and then go after it, it's generally speaking, a couple of years. I'm not trying to tell you it's I'm not trying to discourage you, but it's generally speaking a couple of years to make a big career transition and reinvent yourself. The common mistake I would say to avoid is settle for less. So let's say you want to become a product manager and you're going to say, well, it's too hard. I'm going to become a program manager or a project manager instead. Well, don't settle for that. Go aim high and follow your dreams because that's what's going to be motivating for you to go ahead and reinvent yourself. Another thing that I see people do is, well, I really want to work at say Airbnb, or I really want to work at Upwork or at Uber, but I'm going to settle for a company that I'm not really excited about. Don't do that. So really, when you define success, you want to really stick to your goal and aim high and dream big and go for what you love, because that's what life is about. And then mapping your funnel, that's really saying, okay, so now that I have my goal in mind, what are the skills that I have already that are transferable to help me accomplish my goals? Who are the people in my network that I can talk to get me close to my goal? What are the companies that build products that I love, that I'm interested in, that I want to be a part of? And then, map everything you do, every person you know, every product you use to help you achieve your goal. Now, that's the very scientific approach, right? Define your goal, ready, aim, fire, right? And map your funnel. But what if I told you, and if you want Cassandra to go to the next slide, what if I told you that in fact, there is no such thing as a funnel? The truth is, most of the opportunities that you'll come across in your life and in your career, and at least my personal example, most of the opportunities that I've come across in my life have been very serendipitous. And so really you want to think of disruptive ways and innovative ways to construct your career and to reinvent yourself. Now, let me give you an example. If you want to move to the next slide, Cassandra, I use this concept that I call hooks. So a hook is a way for you to become very attractive to the type of role you want to have. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was going to start a company. 5 years ago, I was going to start a company, and I had a few people that I was talking to start it with, but I wasn't sure they were the right people. Yet I knew that to start a company, I needed a co-founder. So what I did is I started an organization called Founder Dating, which is a professional matchmaking service for uh, founders, company founders. Well, the interesting thing is that I'm not alone having that problem of finding the right co-founder. In fact, thousands of people in Silicon Valley want to start companies and are looking for a co-founder. And by putting myself out there and saying, hey, here I am, I can help you find your co-founder, all of a sudden, all these would-be founders, all these co-founders reached out to me. And guess who had the first pick at finding a co-founder? I did. I spoke with literally thousands of founders until I identified the best one. I really understood at a very, very deep level what it takes to have a positive relationship and a long lasting, successful business relationship with a co founder. So, that type of hook is a great way for you to all of a sudden become what you want to be, become a co founder. I'll give you another example of being creative. You can volunteer at a lot of organizations that if say you want to become a product manager, you can volunteer at a lot of organizations that are focused on fostering product management audiences. My organization is an example, Products That Count. If you are a volunteer with us, you get to meet some really senior product leaders. You get to meet the chief product of Netflix, the CEO of Upwork. You get to meet a lot of these people. And guess what happens? You build relationships with them. You can easily become a product manager and get a job at one of these companies, Yelp and Linplum and um, Amplitude, a lot of the companies that we love and we like to work with. So these are examples of what I call hooks, which are not at all a scientific approach to reinventing you, right? Setting your goals and doing like the networking and the skill building and so on, that are more creative, but that will also get you a long way. And then once you have done that sort of science and art of reinventing yourself, then Cassandra, if you want to go to the next slide, the most important thing is to really let it go. Like, let things happen. Don't get into tunnel vision. And I know I'm talking to people who, many of them are in Silicon Valley and very ambitious and want to make things happen. And this is awesome. But your success is also going to come from your ability to let it go and let that reinvention happen for you. Okay, so that's some of the key lessons I've learned in reinventing yourself. Set a goal, do everything uh, that will help you reach your goal, whether it's networking, skill building, and so on, in a very scientific way. Then use some more creative ways like hooks, such as projects or initiatives to help you get closer to your goal, and then let it go. Now, that's one way you reinvent yourself. You basically change directions. But there's also another way that you reinvent yourself, which is you actually raise your profile. So you like the direction you're going, but you just want to accelerate. You want to get to the next level. So if you go to the next slide, Cassandra, I'm going to share a few surprising steps that will help you raise your profile. The first thing is, let's say now you've been a product manager for a few years and you really want to accelerate your career growth. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to join the conversation. And then after that, shape the conversation and then drive the conversation. So let's start with joining the conversation. It's one thing to be a product manager and to do a great job at it, but it's another thing to start being part of the conversation of what it is to be a great product manager and how you build great product and what it means to be part of a great team, right? So the first step that you can follow to start raising your profile in that profession is by curating some news, or maybe hosting some people at your company that you respect, or maybe retweeting some really relevant pieces of content that are good for product managers. I'll tell you how I got my start on this a few years ago. I set out to tweet one good piece of information every day. Well, guess what happened after I decided that? I had to actually find that one good piece of information to tweet every day. And it's not that easy. I had to read a lot of industry blogs. I had to get connected to a lot of people. Some of them were interesting, some less. And then I had to sort of make my way into, like, what are some of the things that I found interesting? What are some of the news that I find relevant in my industry? So I joined the conversation by simply identifying things that I thought were interesting. After doing that for a little while, um, it became important for me to actually shape the conversation, which is the second step. So it's one thing to say, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I like that article. Oh, I like that person. It's another thing to say, well, actually, I like that article, but I'm going to add my own perspective to it. So you're going to start commenting. You're going to start tweeting some of your own opinions. You're going to maybe, instead of hosting a speaker at your company, you have a discussion with them, or you host a panel that you moderate so that you can actually add your own contribution to the conversation. My head start at shaping the conversation, I decided to write one article every month and then be on one panel every month. That was a few years ago, and really, like, it forced me to start crafting my own opinions about a certain topic. In my case, it was mobile and now investing. Now, once you do that for a little while, you're going to want to take a bigger, have a bigger impact on your own industry, and you're going to want to drive the conversation. And what I mean by that is you're going to take stands. You're going to say, write a book. You're going to give talks. You're going to really say, okay, I want to be a thought leader in my field, and therefore, here's what I need to do. So some of the examples for me where I wanted to write a book, I wanted to give a number of keynote talks at large conferences, and these deliverables, if you want, do not let you a lot of wiggle room to not have your own opinion on a lot of topics. And so that's how you become a thought leader in your own field. I think with that, because I want to make sure I leave a time for a question, I'm gonna stop there and take questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that inspirational talk too. Guys, I'm going to be checking the YouTube chat right next to the video. So if you could type in your questions, and we'll get as many answered as possible. And also, while we're waiting for a couple of the questions to start coming through, now you mentioned about driving the conversation and about doing things to build your own opinion on certain topics. How would you apply this to working to get a job as a product manager?
Yes, to start getting a job as a product manager when you're not a product manager, I think the approach is really the first part of my talk, the reinvention. So define success, map your funnel, and then be creative, like use some projects, um, as opposed to a second step, which is now that I'm a product manager, I want to raise my profile. So I would say if you want to become a product manager, you say, okay, the first thing is I do want to become a product manager, and then map your funnel. So you might want to, go to product school. You might want to update your resume. You might want to network with people who are already in product. You might look at the products that you like and try to identify people who work at these companies. That's how you get started to get a job in product.
Okay, thank you. And we have a few questions coming in. So let me see, I'm going to pick one out here. So we have one from Sugar Coder. How do you let it go when you're very ambitious? So what advice would you have for somebody?
You make that a goal. You make that your target. I understand, of course, right? Like a lot of people, really ambitious, they work, 24/7 on trying to reach their goals. But at some point, it becomes counterproductive. Sometimes you have to, let time do its work. So make that a goal to let it go. Like, what are the things you can do to let it go? One thing that I'll give you a personal example. One thing I use is I use what I call orthogonal hobbies. So things that require enough attention on my part that I let go of the thing, of my goals, and because I have to focus on that hobby. So a good example of that is playing chess, right? If I want to win at chess, I better pay attention to where I put my pieces, and so I sort of forget about my ambitions and my goal because I need to win the chess game, right? Or horseback riding, a great way. Like if I don't pay attention to where the horse is going, I'm going to fall. So I sort of have to pay attention, and therefore I let go of my goals and my you know ambitions.
Right, that's really good advice. And we have another question here. So this is from Crazium. I'm a software engineer for 4 years, post-master's degree, and I've come to understand that I tend to like strategy more than execution, which makes transition to product management a natural choice. But the problem is, how do I convince recruiters to give me opportunities for product management without an MBA? There seems to be more of a demand for engineers than product managers.
Okay, yeah. So that is a great question, and the answer to that is is the barrier that you set for yourself is only yours to break, right? So if you go to a recruiter and you say, I'm an engineer, I want to become a product manager, but I'm sorry, I don't have an MBA, then you have just given that recruiter an excuse for him to say, well, sorry, like just stay an engineer because you don't have an MBA. So forget about the MBA. What are the skills that you need to be a great product person? So let's take that scenario, like that recruiter, you come to him, you say, well, I'm an engineer, but now I'm a product manager. Then he's going to say, well, but do you have the skills of a product manager? Well, what are the skills of a product manager? And then you demonstrate to him that you actually have these skills. Even better is you go to a recruiter, you say, I'm a product manager. I have been an engineer for 4 years, but now I have done, 2 projects where I defined my own product. I built them. I've been able to gain traction. I've taken leadership classes. I graduated from product school and so on and so forth. So I am a product manager, not I want to be a product manager.
Right, and that's definitely really powerful. Also, here's a question. So when it comes to networking, what would you say is the best way to communicate my PM skills in a 10-minute conversation at a networking event?
Well, that's a really good question. So you basically want to, at a networking event, let me think about that. That's interesting. My recommendation at a networking event is to build rapport with the person you're talking with, not to show them your resume. So my recommendation would be use the networking event to build rapport, see if there's a good fit, like if you would get along with the people you're talking with. And then if there is, chances are they're going to feel the same about you. And you're going to want to follow up with them after that to go through sort of the interview process. But my first recommendation is at a networking event, all you do is you build rapport. Hey, oh my God, you love racing cars. So do I. And when did you go last time? And so on and so forth. Yeah, I've been in product for a couple of years. I would love to chat with you about working at your company.
Right, definitely. And then also in continuing to talk about networking and then also building your profile, we have another question here. If you're on the more introverted side and you just start to build your profile, but at the same time you want to keep your privacy, what's a good way or recommendation to balance that?
Yes, absolutely. So and thank you for from an introvert to an introvert. Thank you. So networking can be a real drag. You want to make it very effective. So I would set goals for myself when I go to a networking event. For example, you can say, I will go there. I will network, say twice a week. I will go to an event twice a week. And I will leave that event, each of these events, as soon as I have 2 interesting contacts. That means that every week, it can take as little as 5 minutes to find someone interesting in a room, right? So you could have 5 minutes of networking or 10 minutes of networking a week and come up with 4 relevant contacts that you then follow up with one-on-one.
And that's definitely a really good strategy. I'm going to look for one more question. We have time for just 1 or 2 more. Here's a quite good question from Caroline. So I'm a project manager with great skills in product management, but how do I sell myself without trying to sell myself so hard?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. I'm a project manager with great skills in product management. How do I sell myself without trying to sell myself too hard?
Well, you've just told me that you're not a product manager yet. You're a project manager. So I would just change the dialogue and say, I'm a product manager. Prior to that, I was a project manager for a couple of years. And I made the transition to product management because XYZ reason. And since then, I've built XYZ products that have grown by X metrics and so on and so forth. You want to really shift your conversation to look at like presenting yourself as who you want to be, as opposed to who you were.
Right. Okay, and I'm going to take this final question here. So from Deb, I have a fair bit of experience in product management through my work as a business consultant. How can I best translate the value of that for companies that ask for complex enterprise experience?
So you were a business consultant and now you want to be a product manager for complex products?
Correct.
So business consultant can be many, many things. I'm assuming that you're talking about like a management consultant, Accenture type. What you do as in that type of role is relatively similar to what a product manager does. So the gap is not really far. So I would present myself as a product manager and talk about the product that you've developed. Some of these products might be services, and that's fine.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time, Essie. We really appreciate having you with us today. I'd love to hear any final advice or words of wisdom you'd have for aspiring product managers out there.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. You know what, the parting advice I would give is it's easier than you think. And a lot of times we're so caught up in our own views of who we are. But if you take a step back and look like what's a typical product manager and think about yourself as that person, you're already 90% there. So that would be my final words. It's easier than you think. And then if you are interested in learning from product managers, of course, go to product school, but also feel free to subscribe to our newsletter, productsthatcount.com.
Great. Thank you so much again, SC. And thanks everybody for joining us today. As you guys know, we have offline events in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, and New York. So we'd love for you to join us during the week. And then we also host webinars a couple times a month. So make sure you tune in. And to see what's going on, you can also find us on Twitter at Product School. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a nice day.